Hi there, welcome to Ask the Chiropractor. I'm Dr. Corey Rodnick here in Midland, Michigan, and we have offices elsewhere as well, Saginaw, Mount Pleasant, and different places. And I'm also the daddy of 5 chiropractors, as well as my wife is a chiropractor. Today we're going to talk about, we've been having a very interesting, I graduated in 1983. So I'm an old guy, had a little bit of knowledge here and there. I have 5 degrees and constantly working away and learning more every day. So some things that are kind of new or old and been changed a little and learned differently, and is with motor vehicle accidents, automobile accidents, when there's a whiplash injury, there's something called ligament laxity or loss of motion integrity. And after studying that now for the last many years, we're doing reports on that because I received my impairment rating to be able to do impairment ratings from the American Medical Association back in 1985. That goes back a ways, doesn't it? I don't do that exclusively, but I've been trained in it before anyone even knew what that was. So as we're developing through the years, now we have MRIs. We had CAT scans, but MRIs are wonderful. The MRI, magnetic resonant imagery, it used to be called different names, but now it's pretty common. I know Midland Hospital has a whole building just for that, and it's wonderful. I think it's a great tool. It shows the soft tissue, like the discs, the nerves, it shows the cord, the spinal cord. So it shows certain things compared to an X-ray. An X-ray shows, the hard bone. It shows the space where the discs are because it goes through the discs. So it doesn't actually show the disc, but it shows the disc spaces. So things like that. So on a couple of vertebra, if you see this, here's the disc. So between the disc is a space there, and if this bone was touching this bone, then that would be a disc problem in a larger scale. So that was just 2 bones taken out of the spine to show you that. So then you have your CAT scan, which takes many X-rays and kind of like slices it and dices it, and you get to see more bone structure. Wonderful tool. Been around forever. Been around since I was in school. Imagine just shortly before that, that's when it became more popular, and it was probably going back, I don't know when it was experimental, but I know it was, because I knew some of the doctors who got that accepted as a tool to utilize for measuring, injury. That was for fractures or breaks, or it would show good for whiplash as well, but it didn't show, again, the neural integrity of the problem. So then we come to, lately I've been getting a lot of doctors asking for us to do a workup, checking for the neural integrity, the loss of ligament stability. So in other words, to explain this better, look at this fancy pointer I have. I'm really enjoying this. And I'm probably going to have to put my glasses on at some point. So here's a spinal X-ray. This is of a normal spine. You can see the disc spaces in here are nice and big. And it's not, if I drew a line on the backs of the bodies of these vertebra, you'd see it's smooth. It's kind of smooth. Same thing here. Smooth. Just this goes into this one, this goes into the next one. Pretty good, right? Then you do that with this one. Still there, right? But it's obviously facing the wrong way. So this is the normal curve. This is an abnormal curve. Usually this could be any kind of whiplash. So, it could be falling down the stairs or something that caused that. So I don't see any displacement, much of displacement here. Very little, maybe a little right here. But we'll get into this in a minute. But it gives you the idea that you can measure the backs of these vertebrae. You can measure the fronts of the vertebra. You can measure the angle. See, there's a curve here going the wrong way. This is the normal curve. So loss of the, they call this the cervical curve or lordosis. So flexion is everything when you're a fetus. So the baby's in a position, they call this all flexion, and extension is everything the other way. So this curve is supposed to be a lordotic curve, and here it's inflection, stuck inflection. Okay, then you go here, this is degenerating more. So years after, it keeps degenerating. Could happen quickly, could happen, normal takes a lot longer. So, so here you can see you lost some of the disc. At that stage, is it regrowable? Absolutely. With traction, nutrition, and like using something to put in here to get your curve to push it this way, like a pillow, rolled up pillow. We hand those out as instructions. That's something to take home and do. Not moving the vertebra, but well, slowly they move the vertebra with the pillow. You've heard of cervical pillows, things like that. And the thing, people get cervical pillows who have a situation like that, and they say, well, it didn't feel good. It's not meant to feel good. It shouldn't feel good because you're trying to fix this. You try like braces on your teeth. It's not something that feels good. I don't remember anyone saying it feels good having braces. So anyway, so moving these bones, it doesn't feel good, but it does correct the problem. They're saying it would take 1.5 to 2.5 years to correct that. Here you can see it's getting worse, but I wanted to get into what I want to talk about is this change of. So if you have a vertebra, and they're stacked like this on top of each other like that, and normally when you bend it might move a little bit. Like if you push your head down, it might squish a little bit, but you don't want it squishing all the way, right? You don't want it flicking back all the way. You also don't want it shifting like this. So if it shifts, that would mean these ligaments that are holding this have been stretched. So just like in this one, when the vertebra, here this is the normal position, so if it stretches the other way, these ligaments in the back here have obviously been torn. And if you leave it like that, it'll heal there. So tendons take 4 to 6 weeks to heal. Muscles are only a couple of weeks, but ligaments take 3 months plus. And you sure don't want to leave it like that. So once it's torn, you really want to get at fixing that. Some people don't notice they have a problem. They'll leave it there, and they come in, 6 months down the road with something like that. I go, oh my God, you messed up here. And then the insurance company wants to know why now? How do we know it's from the accident? Things like that. So, and again, that's the bear of your doctor and has to fight with the insurance companies. So, so just like a banana. So if you take a banana, you can bend it a little bit, you can straighten it a little bit, but if you bend it too much, you're going to tear its normal integrity and it won't ever go back to that. And that's what I'm discussing now. So what I'm discussing now is permanent injuries due to the ligaments no longer holding the bones in its normal position. Now, the reason it happens in a whiplash, because it happens so fast. It's like you blink and the whole thing's already done. It already happened. It's that fast that your muscles and tendons have no time to react to the injury. So it's so fast, the head goes flying forward and back so fast that it doesn't have any type of warning to stop this from happening. So it flings back and forth so fast that the ligaments take the brunt of the injury. And that's a problem. So that's where they start classifying it as a more permanent thing. So, and nobody wants to hear they have a permanent injury of their neck. However, in these lawsuits and it's kind of important to know whether you have that or not. Hopefully you don't. But if you did, because if you're in a lawsuit or whatever, the code itself for that is quite a big number. I think it's 60. Well, I know it is. It's 65,000 according to their stats. So it's a big enough thing to say, hey, you're permanently impaired the rest of your life. What's the value of that is the question. And so, of course, it's devastating. It's detrimental. It's very terrible. I mean, some of it you can get a little better. I've experienced that. That you could get a little better, but you're going to have problems the rest of your life. And yep, that's what we're here to talk about today. So, how do we want to do that? So, one measurement. I'm going to have to put my fancy goggles on. Ooh, I look very sophisticated, I know. So let's talk about translation, I guess, first. So translation is when the thing is slipping forward or slipping back. So what we would do then is we measure a flexion view. So I'm going to use this guy. So I have the patient take a picture with their head all the way forward. And then I have them also with their neck all the way back. And I take those two pictures, and what I'm looking for is if I go like that, does the bone itself slip forward? Is that understandable? Maybe not. I'm trying to say it in a way that we can all get it. I know this is, to the public, this would be very new information, especially out here in Michigan. It's been around. I mean, I've known guys working on this for 35 years. I know one guy's doing this for 35 years. He's been measuring this. And but I think most people thought he was crazy at first. And now everyone's starting to understand it better. So the attorneys are now getting used to it. The medical doctors, they're the ones referring them to me, and for the measurements. And anyway, so in other words, it would have to be caused from a quick injury, a quick whiplash, something quick, and at least to that spine. Anyway, at that point, so that slippage is measured in millimeters. So we're measuring it like anything over 3.5 millimeters would be considered a rateable with the American Medical Association as a rateable 25% whole body impairment rating. Whole body. So kind of 25% kind of ruins your life a little bit. Anyway, also, so that's millimeters moving forward, that's slippage. Now for me, I know that when I was electrocuted, this happened to me a little bit. I had a big time slippage of my 3 on 4. So my third went up, slipped forward over my fourth one down, and enough to, it was measurable and all that, but I wasn't suing anybody, although I should have. I made a mistake probably, but I didn't sue anyone, and but it still showed that impairment rating on there, and I was deemed besides that injury, I had others. So I was completely disabled, lifetime disability. I was rated myself. Although, I'm got a little better, I'm doing a little better. I still got to watch getting whiplash. Like, my kids all want to go to Cedar Point, and they want to go there. They even got me a room. They booked a room for my wife and I. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't done any jerking around ones. I'll have to look and see. I don't think getting jerked around, that could cause me months of total misery. And anyway, but, I'm able to do a lot more. I've healed quite a bit everywhere else. But those ligaments, they're pretty much shot. So, I have to be aware that that's a situation I'm in and be careful, that's all. So, like when I bend my head forward, this bone slips forward. So you don't want it hitting. The spinal cord is running through the center of this. So what happens is when you're hitting the spinal cord over and over, it bruises the actual spinal cord. And they call that a malagia, which is a bruising of the cord, which causes it to fire erratically on that area. So you've seen people, they're twitching and they're all over the place. And I mean, that could be something else. It could be cerebral palsy. It could be MS. It could be Joe Cocker. But singing, anyway, that was a joke. I just saw him on TV. Anyway, but it could cause a permanent, ticking and movements. And that's what they thought I was going to be. And I'm not. At least not yet. We hope I never do. But that would be a problem. Especially as a chiropractor, if I'm twitching, probably not the great thing. So anyway, I'm sure there's ways to handle that, though. So yeah, I was permanently disabled for how long? Like 4 years, I think. 3 for sure. And but with exercise, nutrition, everything, I came out of it a little bit. But I'm still subject to massive injury without much effort. Like, they say some people have a glass spine, or, you don't want a glass jaw like a boxer, it just breaks everything. But you don't want to get in another accident, that's for sure. So I'm a very cautious driver. I stay away from bumpers as much as possible and do my best not to have another accident. If I do have any accident, I know I'm goofed up. I know I'm in trouble. So anyway, that's what we're looking for. And if that can be shown, which is very easy, it's just measurements. And I know I had one where they sent him to an independent medical examiner, and I explained that there's a ligament instability, and he wrote in his report, I actually went to the, he writes in the report that, some kind of ligament thing. It was obviously the guy never heard of this. He didn't know what we're talking about. And so when he says, their job's to work for the insurance company and give the insurance's opinion more. I mean, it's supposed to be independent, but it definitely isn't, obviously. And otherwise, why would insurances use them? So, and I've been an independent medical examiner. I've done both for and against. I've done, in my days, I was in a huge lawsuit. I was the independent medical examiner. That was from 4 car accidents the woman was in, and over a 9-year period. And 4 accidents in 9 years. And it was up to me to figure out who owes what, who got overpaid, who's underpaid, and who's responsible, because it was 4 different insurance companies involved. So each time she had an accident, she got a different insurance company. And that was a heck of a thing. That was my biggest one I've ever done. That was huge. I've gone through cases of notes, and it was quite elaborate. And anyway, so I'm more of a, at this point in my life, I'm more for the patient than I am for the insurance company. But here I was pretty neutral, but I told them I'm more towards the patient. And they apparently had an independent medical that the judge didn't like. And I guess got mad. And I know the other guy. He's a great guy. I like him. But although I get along with pretty much everybody. So he was very, he's basically said she's fat. So that didn't work very well. She was obese, and she was like 450, I think. No, more than that. Like 475. I'm trying to exactly remember. I can't. But it was under 500. She lost 200 pounds shortly after that, and now she wasn't as fat. So she was like, still pretty good sized woman, but she lost her 200 pounds. It was about 220 she lost. And I said, obviously, here she was fat, now she's less fat. It didn't affect anything. So the idea that she's fat is obviously not true. And anyway, so it turned out, we figured out who owes what and who's responsible, what percentage of this and that, because it did get difficult. But I think everything was, the insurance company thanked the daylights out of me. And again, there were 3 different attorneys for their side, and that's who hired me, because I was on the state board. I functioned as I was vice chair of the Michigan Chiropractic Board for a couple years there, and then I was also on the disciplinary committee for 3.5 years, I believe. And I don't know, they got a hold of that, and they wanted to use that as, look, this is about as good as it's going to get. Here's who we got. And anyway, so getting back to that, and on that, there was a lot of ligament laxity. There was a lot of spinal curvatures. On the first accident, she was hit, and she went like a maraca back and forth. So yours says they couldn't get her a seatbelt because she was too big, even with the extension seatbelt. And so anyway, she was rolling around, so she had a lot of this. And it was very interesting. And the doctor who was presenting it, her chiropractor, not the first one, had no idea or clue with any of this, but her second chiropractor was amazingly very well literate in this information. So the other part of this is called angulation. So anything over 11% is rateable, that 25% whole body impairment rating. So in other words, that's the one from this to this. So this was what we already just looked at, and that's called translation or slippage. And this one is angulation. Angulation, when they bend their head down, you don't want it hitting like more this way, and you don't want it when they look up spreading apart. So in other words, the actual ligaments that hold this piece to this piece here, you don't want that all tore up. So that's what's going on that one. And again, we measure each vertebra in each position. And you can just go for days on this stuff. It's unbelievable. So, and again, it's pretty new stuff as far as the public, attorneys, and they don't know a lot of this. Now, can you get this in other ways, injuries? I'm sure you can, but usually it's from a very speeding injury, very quick. I only have a few minutes left, so we measure that, same thing. So these aren't flexion extension views, but they're in flexion just because their neck's in flexion. So you can see, you measure this corner, then you measure this corner. I'll use my fancy little thing here, which I put in. Da-da-da. Okay, so you're measuring the distance from here to here and the distance from here to here. And you want those to be about equal. And you're comparing that with when they bend their head down from here to here and from here to here, and when they lift their head up from here to here and here to here. So you don't want that spread apart. You don't want that clumped together. You want them pretty even, Steven. And that would be they have integrity in their ligaments, and they don't have a loss of motion integrity. If that makes sense to everybody, that's a brief interview of loss of motion integrity, ligament laxity. So at least now if you hear about it, like years ago, whiplash, no one knew what that was. Right now, nobody knows what this is. So I'm trying to explain it, and I get a lot of questions asked about it because it's so new, and we're so old hat at this already. It's like common for us, but I wouldn't know to tell anybody, basically. Okay, so we'll see you next month at Ask the Chiropractor, and I hope you guys have a great, great day and enjoy the beautiful weather.